Welcome to the Daily Review. This is Razak, Senior Trading Strategist here at CMTrading. And today is October 17, 2023, and today is Tuesday morning. So looking at the highlights of the day, the US markets get a bounce, but the question is it sustainable? So looking at today's major economic events at 2:30 South African time, out of the United States, we have a monthly retail sales numbers coming out. Now, going into this number, starting out with the Forex symbols, we're watching the major pairs consolidate after that dead cat bounce. And as we look at the indices, both the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ get that bounce. And looking at commodities, gold and oil tapering off after having that rally. And when we look at stocks, there are two stocks that lifted the market higher, specifically Meta and Amazon this time. And lastly, looking at cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin gets a spike and then tapers off. So let's take a look at the markets and see what we can expect from today's trading. So here we go. First, the Euro USD, and you can see it's consolidating. Not much more than that. I mean, it's really in a very tight range, 105.47 right now, and that seems to be the number that we always find ourselves this time of the day with the Euro USD. And we look at the others, they're doing the same thing also. British pound, the Japanese yen, they're all really consolidating in this area. So we got to see what's going to happen the next couple of days. Maybe if we get some direction in the markets, we'll see either a strengthening of the dollar or a weakening of the dollar, and much of it is really dependent on the Dow Jones. So jumping into first commodities, looking at gold. Gold got that ridiculous spike up, and that's really what's been happening in the Middle East, and this is really a great news play. Question is whether or not it's going to taper off or not, and a lot of it is news driven, so keep that in mind. When you're in an environment of news driven, you just have to react to the markets more out of what the emotional responses are than the rational responses are. Now looking at crude oil, also tapering off here to $85 a barrel as well. So that's steady, not making new highs, but not dropping either. Now looking at the US markets, the Dow Jones got that lift yesterday if we look at a 4-hour chart, but looking at a daily, you can see that we got that lift yesterday towards the 30-day moving average, and we're at 34,100. Remember, that's 1,100 points above our sell-off to 33,000. So we're almost at 50% from our high of 35,600 and our low of 34,000. So keep that in mind as that is still progressing here and getting close to that 50% mark. Now we're going into earnings seasons. I can't stress this enough, and this is going to have a tremendous effect on the market as well. Looking at the NASDAQ also got that lift, and what was it? Well, we got to go back to Facebook. Facebook is the one that's been super strong, and sure enough, it was the one that went up 315 to 321. Remember, just a year ago, this was a $90 stock. If we look at a weekly chart, you can see that quite clearly. Just a year ago was a $90-something stock. It's 3 times as much right now. So keep that in mind as this has been very strong. Now, what's the other one? Amazon also perked up above its 200-day moving average, looking at a 4-hour chart, but right there at that 30-day moving average on as a resistance. So we got to see how this plays out, because we start the first wave of corporate earnings this week with Tesla, and that's going to really give us some heads up. Now looking at Tesla, before we get into that number, it's consolidating. It's in a relatively, I don't want to say tight range because it's not, 266 to 253, that's a big range. $13, that's pretty decent. So keep that in mind that we're just consolidating here, and a lot is going to be weighed into not what just the numbers are, but what the guidance is moving forward. Now lastly, looking at Bitcoin, which is, I call it Bitco currencies, right? It spiked to 29,800 and then just petered out right afterwards. Let's take a look at a 1-hour chart to give us that perspective. Let's look at a 30. There you go. That's a little bit better. You can see that quite clearly. It was a news-driven item, and then it tanked. Now, again, if you're a scalper and you're there during the day and you see these type of activities and your eyes are glued to the monitor, great. This is really a great example of it where you get that opportunity. Just be aware that this opportunity is, on a 30-minute chart. That means those two angles were just an hour time frame of when that happened, between 27,000 to 28,900-ish level. That's a nice move, but you also have to be glued in front of the computer at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to be sure to be able to trade something like this. Not saying it's not tradable, just saying that it's just be aware of the nature of the asset, that it's something that you have to just be perked up. Now, a person can make a month, a year out of this type of trade, not even a question. So that's something to consider as this perks up. And it looks like it's getting stronger right now as it's hitting 28,400-ish level, which is the upper range. Okay, and so if it does break out and continues breaking out above this 28,500, then we could see it back going to 29,000. We'll see you here tomorrow on the market review. We'll see you. Thank you, everybody.